I was standing in my childhood bedroom holding a wedding invitation. Not to my own wedding. To his. Marcus was marrying another woman in 6 days, and I just found out I was pregnant with his child. The same day, he told me never to contact him again. But what he didn't know was about to destroy everything he'd built. Go ahead and hit subscribe right now because this story is going to take you on a ride you won't believe. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from because I want to know this message is reaching people everywhere who've ever felt used, betrayed, or thrown away like they meant nothing. This is about how I gave a man 3 years of my life, my youth, my money, and my body, only to watch him marry someone else while I was carrying his baby. And how the universe made sure he paid for every single lie. I need you to understand something before we go any further. When I met Marcus, I wasn't some desperate woman looking for a man to fix me. I was doing fine on my own. I had a job, my own small apartment, plans for my future. I was 21 years old, working night shifts as a security guard in Portland, Oregon, going to community college during the day, exhausted but making it work. I had goals. I had dreams. And then I saw him sitting alone in the campus cafeteria, looking like the weight of the world was crushing him. Marcus was beautiful. Not just physically, though he was that too, tall with these intense dark eyes that seemed to look right through you. But there was something else. A vulnerability. A brokenness that made me want to help. He was 23, repeating his second year of architecture school after failing out the first time. His family in Detroit had cut him off completely. No money, no support, no safety net. He was 2 weeks away from being kicked out of school for unpaid tuition and 1 week away from being evicted from the room he was renting. I bought him lunch that day. Just a sandwich and coffee, nothing major. But the way he looked at me when I set it down in front of him, like I'd just saved his life, something in my chest cracked open. We talked for 3 hours. He told me about his dreams of becoming an architect, of designing buildings that would outlive him, of proving everyone wrong who said he'd never amount to anything. He cried. Actually cried while telling me how scared he was of failing again. And I made a decision that would change everything. I told him I'd help him. That he wouldn't fail. That we'd figure it out together. 3 weeks later, he moved into my apartment. It was tiny, barely 400 square feet, but it was mine and I wanted to share it with him. With us. Because that's what it felt like. Us. A team. He'd hold me at night and whisper promises into my hair. When I make it, Celeste, when I graduate and start my career, I'm going to buy you a house. I'm going to marry you. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret believing in me. I believed every word. I tattooed those promises onto my heart. His tuition was $1,800 per semester. I made $12 an hour as a security guard. Do the math. It didn't work. So I picked up a second job cleaning houses on weekends. Then a third job doing overnight janitorial work at office buildings. I'd work my 8-hour security shift, go straight to clean someone's house for 4 hours, sleep for maybe 3 hours, then go clean offices until dawn. My hands were constantly raw and bleeding from the chemicals. My back ached so badly some mornings I could barely stand up straight. I lost weight because I was too tired to eat. But every time I paid his tuition, every time I handed him money for books or bus fare or food, every time I made sure he had everything he needed to focus on school, I felt like I was investing in our future. Marcus would massage my shoulders after my long shifts. He'd run me baths. He'd tell me I was the strongest woman he'd ever met. You're an angel, Celeste. I don't deserve you. I'm going to spend my whole life proving I'm worthy of this sacrifice. And I'd kiss him and tell him he was worth it. That we were building something beautiful together. That love meant sacrifice. I gave him more than money. I gave him my body, my time, my energy, my hope. There were nights when I was so exhausted I'd fall asleep while he was talking, and he'd just hold me and let me rest. There were mornings when I'd wake up to him making breakfast, the only thing he contributed because I paid for all the groceries. But those small gestures felt huge. They felt like love, like partnership, like he saw how hard I was working and appreciated it. Looking back now, I can see how naive I was. How I mistook his dependency for devotion. how I confused his need for my resources with need for me. But in those moments, living in that tiny apartment, working myself half to death, falling into bed next to him every night, I genuinely believed we were building forever. I believed the struggle was temporary. That once he graduated and got his career going, we'd get married, have babies, buy that house he promised, and laugh about how hard things used to be. I believed in us more than I'd ever believed in anything. Marcus graduated in May of 2022. I'd worked 3 jobs for 2.5 years straight to make it happen. I'd paid over $15,000 in tuition, books, supplies, and living expenses. I'd sacrificed my own education, dropping out of community college because I couldn't afford both of us. I'd given up friendships because I was always working. I'd given up sleep, health, and any kind of personal life. But watching him walk across that stage in his cap and gown made every sacrifice feel worth it. I cried so hard I could barely see him receive his diploma. My Marcus. Our achievement. Our future starting now. He got a job within 3 weeks at a mid-sized architecture firm in Seattle. We'd have to move, but I didn't care. Fresh start. New city. Finally things getting easier. His starting salary was $45,000 a year. Not amazing, but combined with what I was making, we'd be comfortable for the first time ever. I started looking at apartments in Seattle, planning our move, imagining our new life. Marcus seemed distant during all this planning, distracted, but I figured he was just stressed about the new job. Then everything fell apart. I lost my security job in June. The company I worked for went under, just shut down overnight. Suddenly my main income was gone. I still had my cleaning jobs, but it wasn't nearly enough to cover our rent and bills. I told Marcus we needed to budget carefully until I found another main job. His response made my blood run cold. I can't be stressed about money right now, Celeste. I'm trying to establish myself at this firm. This is a critical time in my career. You've always handled the money stuff. Just figure it out. Just figure it out. As if I hadn't been figuring it out alone for 2.5 years. As if his paycheck couldn't help cover the apartment I'd been paying for entirely by myself. I started applying everywhere, picking up extra houses to clean, but Seattle was expensive and I was drowning. And Marcus's attitude toward me changed so drastically it gave me whiplash. When I had money, when I could pay all the bills and keep our life comfortable, he was sweet, affectionate, loving. The moment I struggled, the moment I needed him to step up and contribute more, he became cold, critical, mean. He'd come home and complain that the apartment was messy, that I hadn't made dinner, that I looked tired and wasn't taking care of myself. Never mind that I was working 16-hour days trying to keep us afloat. Never mind that he was perfectly capable of cleaning or cooking. I was failing in his eyes because I wasn't maintaining the same level of service I'd provided when I had more time and energy. But the worst part, the part that should have made me leave immediately, was the other women. I'd come home from cleaning houses, exhausted and aching, and find evidence everywhere. A different perfume in our bathroom. Long blonde hairs on our bed when I had short dark hair. Strange earrings on the nightstand. Lipstick stains on glasses. Once I came home early and saw a woman leaving our building, adjusting her dress, looking satisfied. When I confronted Marcus, he made me feel insane. You're paranoid. The stress is making you see things that aren't there. Maybe if you weren't working so much you'd think more clearly. I found messages on his phone one night while he was in the shower. Explicit messages with multiple women. Plans to meet up. Photos I couldn't unsee. When he came out and saw me holding his phone, he didn't apologize. He got angry. Told me I'd violated his privacy. That I was insecure and controlling. That if I kept acting crazy, he'd leave me. And I apologized. I actually apologized for catching him cheating. Because I was so broken down, so convinced I needed him, so invested in the story I'd told myself about us, that I accepted blame for his betrayal. The gaslighting got worse. He'd bring women to our apartment while I was at work. I'd find evidence, and he'd deny it so convincingly that I'd question my own sanity. He'd tell me I was making things up, that I was stressed and imagining problems, that I should be grateful he stayed with me despite how difficult I'd become. And I believed him. Or I forced myself to believe him because the alternative, accepting that I'd wasted years on someone who didn't love me, was too painful to face. Then came Amara. I didn't know her name at first. I just noticed Marcus taking phone calls in the other room, speaking in a language I didn't recognize. When I asked, he told me it was Yoruba, that he was talking to a coworker named Amara who was like a sister to him. That speaking in their native language helped them both feel connected to their heritage. He showed me her picture, told me she was engaged to someone else, made it all seem so innocent. And, because I wanted to believe there was still something good in him, something worth the years I'd invested, I accepted the lie. In November 2022, my grandmother got sick. She was in hospice back in Portland, and my mom begged me to come home. I hadn't seen my family in over a year because I'd been working constantly. I finally saved enough for a bus ticket and told Marcus I'd be gone for 2 weeks. He seemed relieved. Actually smiled when I said I was leaving. I should have known right then. I should have trusted my gut. But I kissed him goodbye, told him I loved him, and got on that bus thinking about how much I'd miss him. I'd been at my parents' house for 8 days when my world ended. My phone rang at 2 in the morning. Marcus. I answered thinking something was wrong, that he missed me, that maybe he was finally realizing what he had. His voice was flat, emotionless. Celeste, we need to talk. I don't think this is working anymore. I need you to stay in Portland. Don't come back to Seattle. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. What are you talking about? Marcus, what's wrong? The silence stretched out so long I thought the call had dropped. Then he said the words that shattered me completely. I'm getting married. To Amara. The wedding is in 10 days, and it would be uncomfortable having you around. I've already packed your things. I'll mail them to your parents' house. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what I was hearing. The Amara you said was your coworker? Your sister? You're marrying her? Marcus, we've been together for 3 years. I paid for everything. I gave up everything for you. You can't just, he cut me off. You chose to do those things. I never asked you to. And, honestly, Amara is a better fit for where I am in my life now. Her family has money and connections. She can help my career. You can't. This is just business. Business. 3 years of love reduced to a business decision. I was sobbing now, ugly crying while my parents slept in the next room. I can't come back to my own apartment? The apartment I've been paying for. He actually laughed. The lease is in my name. Only my name. You can't prove you paid anything. All the receipts have my name on them. Legally, you have no claim. Amara and I will be living there after the wedding. I'm sorry, but you need to move on. I hung up and screamed into my pillow. Screamed until my throat was raw. My mom rushed in and held me while I told her everything. The look on her face, the mixture of rage and heartbreak, matched what I felt. She wanted to call him, to fly to Seattle and confront him, but I stopped her. What was the point? He'd made his choice. He'd chosen money and status over everything we'd built. Over me. I tried to call him back the next day. Blocked. I tried texting. Blocked. I sent an email begging him to talk to me, to at least let me get my things myself. No response. Then 3 days later, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. This is Amara. Marcus told me about you. About how you're harassing him and trying to ruin his happiness. Stop contacting my fiancé or I'll get a restraining order. He's moved on and you need to do the same. He never loved you. You were just convenient while he needed financial support. Now he has me and doesn't need you anymore. She sent pictures. Her wearing a massive engagement ring. The two of them kissing. The apartment I'd paid for, completely redecorated with her furniture, her style, like I'd never existed there. Another picture of a wedding dress. And one more message. He told me everything about you. How desperate you were. How you threw yourself at him. How he felt trapped but stayed out of pity. You're pathetic. Move on. I threw my phone across the room. I wanted to die. Actually wanted to stop existing because the pain was so consuming I couldn't imagine surviving it. But there was one more twist coming that would make everything even worse. 2 weeks after that message from Amara, I woke up nauseous. Violently sick. I thought it was stress, grief, my body shutting down from the trauma. My mom insisted I see a doctor. The doctor came back into the exam room with a strange expression. "Celeste, you're pregnant." About 6 weeks along. The room spun. 6 weeks. Right before I'd left for Portland. I was carrying Marcus's baby. The man who'd just married another woman was about to be a father and didn't even know it. And I had to decide what to do with this information completely alone. I didn't tell Marcus about the pregnancy. What would be the point? He'd made it clear I meant nothing to him. That I'd been a convenient source of funding while he needed it. The thought of him knowing I was carrying his child, of him having any power over me or my baby, made me sick. So I made a decision. This baby would be mine. Only mine. Marcus had forfeited any right to know the moment he threw me away. The pregnancy was hard. Not just physically, though the morning sickness was brutal, but emotionally. Every doctor's appointment I went to alone. Every ultrasound where I saw my baby's heartbeat with no one to share it with. Every milestone happening while I was still healing from the deepest betrayal I'd ever experienced. My parents were supportive, but I could see the worry in their eyes. Worry about how I'd manage. About whether I was strong enough. About whether this baby would be a constant reminder of the man who'd destroyed me. But something shifted when I felt the first kick. I was 4 months along, lying in bed at my parents' house, and I felt this flutter in my belly. My baby? My daughter, I'd later find out. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't a reminder of Marcus. She was proof that something good could come from something painful. That I could create life and love even after being broken. I named her Iris, after my grandmother who'd passed away 2 weeks after I found out I was pregnant. My grandmother who'd told me before she died that the worst heartbreaks make way for the greatest transformations. I got a job at a marketing firm when Iris was 3 months old. Started as an assistant, but I worked hard, proved myself, climbed the ladder. By the time Iris was 2, I was a marketing coordinator making decent money. I'd moved into my own apartment. Small, but ours. I decorated it with pictures of Iris and me, proof that we were building something beautiful together. I started therapy to work through the trauma. Started dating casually, though I was in no rush. Started believing in myself again in ways I'd forgotten were possible. I didn't think about Marcus. Didn't check his social media. Didn't wonder about his life with Amara. I was too busy building my own life, raising my daughter, healing. Then in March 2024, almost 2 years after he'd thrown me away, I got a call from Sienna. She was an old friend from Seattle, someone who'd known both of us. We hadn't spoken in ages, so I was surprised to hear from her. "Celeste, I don't know if you've heard, but Marcus's life fell apart. I thought you should know." I almost told her I didn't care. That his life had nothing to do with me anymore. But curiosity won. What happened? Sienna told me everything. How Marcus had been fired from his architecture firm about 6 months after marrying Amara. Apparently, he'd been taking credit for other people's work, had conflicts with everyone. His ego had grown so massive he'd become unbearable to work with. He couldn't find another job in architecture because word had spread about why he was fired. How Amara, who'd married him thinking he was this rising star with a bright future, turned on him the moment the money dried up. Their marriage had become a nightmare. Constant fighting. Amara throwing it in his face that she'd made a mistake, that he wasn't the man he'd pretended to be, that her family was embarrassed by him. She filed for divorce after 14 months of marriage. Took him for whatever little he had left. He'd had to move back in with roommates, was working as a server at a restaurant, his entire life and career in ruins. "He asks about you sometimes," Sienna said quietly. "Asks if I've heard from you. If you're okay." I think he realizes what he lost. I thanked Sienna for telling me and hung up. I waited for satisfaction. For vindication. For some kind of triumph. But all I felt was a strange sort of peace. Not happiness at his suffering, but peace that I'd gotten out before wasting any more years. Peace that his choices had consequences. Peace that I'd chosen myself and my daughter over someone who saw me as disposable. Iris was 3 years old when Marcus showed up. I was living in a nice two-bedroom apartment by then, had been promoted to senior marketing coordinator, was dating a wonderful man named Ethan who treated both me and Iris like we were precious. Life was good. Really, genuinely good. Then one Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened it and there he was. Marcus. Looking nothing like the confident man who'd thrown me away. He was thinner, older-looking, defeated. Celeste. My name came out of his mouth like a prayer. Please. I just need 5 minutes. Please. I should have slammed the door. Should have called the police. But there was a part of me that needed this confrontation. Needed to look him in the eyes and show him that he hadn't broken me. I stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind me so Iris wouldn't see him. You have 3 minutes. Talk. He broke down. Actual tears streaming down his face. Told me everything Sienna had already told me and more. How Amara had destroyed him emotionally. How losing his career had shattered his identity. How every single day he regretted throwing away what we had. You were the only person who ever really loved me, Celeste. The only one who saw me when I was nothing and loved me anyway. I was stupid. I was selfish. I chose status over substance and it destroyed me. Please. Please give me another chance. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Stop. I held up my hand. You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up here after 4 years and ask for redemption because your life fell apart. You didn't lose me because you made a mistake. You lost me because you showed me exactly who you are. Someone who uses people. Who sees love as a transaction. Who discards people the moment they're no longer useful. He reached for me. I stepped back. I'm not that girl anymore, Marcus. The one who would sacrifice everything for someone who gave nothing back. I have a daughter now. A career. A man who actually values me. A life I'm proud of. And none of it includes you. His face went white. A daughter? You have a daughter. I saw the math clicking in his head. Saw him counting back the years. Is she? I cut him off. She's none of your business. You gave up any right to ask questions about my life when you married another woman while I was grieving and told me I was nothing but convenient. The door behind me opened. Iris peeked out, her beautiful face so much like mine. Mommy, who's that? I picked her up, held her close. Marcus stared at her with this look of absolute devastation. Seeing what he'd lost. What he'd never get to know. No one, baby. Just someone leaving. I looked at Marcus one last time. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't reach out. You made your choice. Now live with it. I went inside and locked the door. Watched through the window as he stood there for a long time before finally walking away. Iris tugged on my shirt. Why was that man crying? I kissed her forehead. Because he lost something precious and only realized it when it was too late. She nodded like she understood, then went back to playing with her toys. And I stood there thinking about everything that had happened. Everything I'd survived. Everything I'd built from the ashes of that betrayal. Here's what I need you to understand. The people who break you don't get to decide when and how you heal. Marcus thought he could throw me away, build a life with someone else, and then come back when that didn't work out. But healing isn't about waiting for the person who hurt you to realize your value. It's about realizing it yourself. It's about understanding that someone's inability to love you properly was never about your worth. It was about their limitations, their brokenness, their inability to recognize a gift when it was standing right in front of them. Karma isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just life teaching people the lessons they refuse to learn the easy way. Marcus learned that people aren't resources to be used and discarded. That relationships built on what someone can do for you rather than who they are will always crumble. That the person who loves you at your lowest is worth more than 1,000 people who only show up when you're winning. He learned it too late, after he'd already lost everything that mattered. And that's not my burden to carry. That's his. I don't hate him. I don't wish him harm. I just don't think about him at all. Because my life, my daughter, my joy, my peace, they're not connected to him anymore. He's not a chapter in my story. He's a lesson I learned. And the lesson is this: never shrink yourself to fit someone else's limitations. Never sacrifice your worth for someone who doesn't see it. And never, ever give someone the power to make you feel like you're not enough. You are enough. You always were. They just weren't capable of receiving it. If you've ever been used, betrayed, or made to feel like you weren't enough, this channel is for you. Subscribe so you never miss stories that remind you of your worth. And leave a comment below. Have you ever experienced a situation like this? I'd love to hear your story. How did you handle it?